the new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The empty seat. Who was actually just that, an empty chair in your office because you couldn't find someone to fill it. So it just sat there costing you money with all its fancy ergonomic features. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can make it easy to fill that seat with the right candidate, with nearly 60% of businesses finding someone to interview in the first week alone. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Ferrero. Soccer's biggest stage is approaching, and Ferrero is making it easy to go all in. Pick any two Ferrero brands from Kinder Bueno to Ferrero Rocher, and you could win the $1 million grand prize, plus an exciting range of daily and weekly prizes. Don't miss your shot. Official rules apply. Learn more at goallinandwin.com.
And action! Hello and welcome to episode 326 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films, everything in between, how to get them made, how to make them, how to try not to F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. Hello, how you doing? I'm Giles Alderson. I'm delighted to say 3-Day Millionaire is out on Netflix right now. We are in the top 10 right now in the UK. Pretty amazing. It's also available in the US and Canada. Link to that is in the show notes. So I thought I'd get that out of the way first, because it's super exciting. But today's episode is even more exciting, if it could possibly be, because we have on Peyton Reed, ladies and gentlemen, the director of Bring It On, starring Kirsten Dunst, Down with Love, starring Renée Zellweger and Ewan McGregor, The Breakup, starring Jennifer Aniston, Yes Man, starring Jim Carrey, and Ant-Man 1, Ant-Man 2 and the Wasp, and the brand new Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which stars Paul Rudd, Catherine Newton, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, and, in a starring turn, Jonathan Majors. I sat down with Peyton Reed in front of a load of cameras. This is the first time I've done this. It's the junkets me and Dom sometimes talk about, and Dom has done one of these with Conor Burrow before. We think we're just going to do a normal podcast interview, but no, there's lovely huge cameras and it's all lit. There's microphones dangling from the roof, and suddenly now you're on camera and it's a very different feeling. So this is the first time I've done it, and we have turned this into a video, so that'll be on YouTube soon, so you can watch me fluff my way through it. But what myself and the actual lovely Peyton Reed talked about was his career, how he managed to end up directing Ant-Man and the Wasp, taking over from Edgar Wright, what it was like getting it tonally right with Paul Rudd, and then Jonathan Majors coming in and doing an almost Shakespearean performance, and what it's like working with Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas over all these years. And what he learnt from making Super 8 movies as a youngster, how he learnt to edit, how he learnt camera angles just by doing it and watching other directors work. We talk about disappointments as well, his work on Fantastic Four and how that never came to be. And pitching is a huge thing for filmmakers, and Peyton goes into depth about actually how he pitched to Marvel for Ant-Man, and why you should be absolutely passionate for the project you're pitching for, otherwise don't bother doing it. We talk about success, and we talk about making mistakes, and the importance of having a relationship with your crew. Peyton Reed, ladies and gentlemen, on the Filmmakers Podcast. We've had some amazing guests in the last couple of weeks. Christopher Landon last week, his film We Have a Ghost is number 1 on Netflix right now if you've not seen that. Ben Caron with his film Sharper, it's number 1 on Apple right now. They're the last 2 weeks. Before that we had Todd Field, and then Charlotte Wells, and then Samuel D. Hunter. 2 of those 3 are up for an Oscar this coming Sunday. Let's see how we get on, shall we? Super exciting. Coming up next week for you, even more excitement, we have the director of Joyland, Saim Sadiq, and the director of Next Exit, Marli Elfman. 2 fantastic guests, so that is coming up for you. All to come on the Filmmakers Podcast. Look, if you do love this, tell your friends. That's how we grow, and it's so important that more people hear about this, because then we can get even more great guests on and I can spend more time editing these. And go on iTunes and give us a 5-star review and click the plus button as well, and you get it straight onto your podcast of choice when you download it. Shout outs this week. Well, to be honest, I've been meaning to do these for a little while, but I've been a bit busy wanting to get to some of the episodes. But shout outs to Keep Off Productions and to Philip Pugh Film_maker on Twitter, Radistin Radev, Lee Paul Greenhow, Craig Cool, and also shout outs to Mark Coleman, whose latest film Manfish has just been released. It's onto Sky Store and Amazon in the UK right now. It's a creature feature, but it's actually a love story. And also Marcus Marku has just launched Cinema for a Pound. Basically, his latest film, The Wife and a House Husband, is getting released at the Prince Charles Cinema from March the 10th. And you can go. And it's premiering there for 3 weeks. It's got a three-week run, Prince Charles Cinema in central London, and then it'll also be doing other key cities across the UK in April. But it's basically £1. £1. You can go to the cinema for £1. You can get as many tickets as you want for £1. Listen, get a group of friends together and go support, because this is a brilliant idea Marcus is doing. It's spreading the word, it's making cinema accessible for you, and he wants to sell them out. Of course he does, so go support. Links to that and to Mark Coleman's film are in the show notes. Go support if you can. Right, let's get to it. This is myself and the amazing Peyton Reed talking all about Ant-Man, Quantumania. It is out now in cinemas across the UK, and about his career and so much more as well. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good, man.
Giles is from the Filmmakers podcast, and Oscar will be that way.
I think so, yeah. Chris, are you happy with audio, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just going to move that mic very slightly forward.
I love the shirt. That's great.
Thank you, mate. Designed it a load for the podcast, and I always really liked the idea. It was like, make your film, go do it.
Well, that's the best possible advice for young filmmakers, right?
Right.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it's the only way to do it. Go on.
Giles, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
So, Peyton Reed, thank you so much for joining us on the Filmmakers Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honour, it really is. So, look, let's. The first thing for me, which I found fascinating, is the volume.
Yes.
We've been wanting, as a lot of indie filmmakers go, look, the volume, it sounds amazing. We want to work in it. What a great space to play in. But it's ridiculously expensive for indie filmmakers.
Yes, it is. It's ridiculously expensive for big budget filmmakers.
For anyone.
Yes.
How did you find it going from, these fantastic films you've made before, these comedy films, especially Ant-Man as well before that, but then now you're diving into this whole world of the volume and the size and spectacle of Ant-Man with that. Would you just touch on that for us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in getting to do a third Ant-Man movie, Quantumania, I definitely wanted to mix it up and do something different. The first two movies took place in San Francisco, as does the beginning of this one, but then we very quickly get down to the quantum realm. And we talked about really kind of putting Scott and Hope in a very different context, and we wanted to answer questions from the last movie about what's actually in the quantum realm and what was Janet doing down there. But it gave us a chance to do something that we could really kind of go gonzo with the design and make it like a harder sort of science fiction fantasy movie in its look, right? That was exciting to me. To do that, obviously, you can't go shoot on location in the quantum realm. We had to figure out all the different methodologies of doing it. And we used a lot of traditional stuff, really amazing sets, great production design by Will Tay, our production designer. We used traditional blue screen and green screen, but we also used the volume. And the volume is an interesting piece of technology, as you mentioned, quite expensive. And for people who don't know what it is, it's basically a 360-degree LED screen that you create material, whether it's photographic or digital, and you project it on the screens, and you work the cameras and you shoot in there, and it creates a parallax with the camera. So actors love it. Because they can see kind of, they don't have to imagine. They don't actually have to use their imaginations. Although that's what they get paid to do. But it's, it's really for certain things in the movie. We had to create a lot of different environments within the quantum realm. The volume was right for some of them, but there are size restrictions to it, right?
Sure.
If you're doing a scene where people are running and there's a lot of movement, You can't. It's more for sort of like more static scenes.
You almost need a treadmill at that point, don't you? Like a floor moving floor to even get away with it.
For Mandalorian, it's perfect, right? I think for that context. And one of the great things is, and one of the first things they showed us was the sort of fake naturalism you can get, like, eternal magic hour, right? And that stuff is great.
Yeah, it does.
We were pushing the limits of the technology on this because we wanted to get a lot of movement and elements, ships and things that were moving in the volume. And that requires that they produce these very high-res, what they call loads for the volume early on. So it is a technical, just that alone is very, technical and requires a lot of lead time. It's really cool technology, and it's going to be fun to see how it develops over the years. And LED in general, I think, not just the volume, but just LED panels and things for the interactive light is really exciting.
I love that, with the volume you can, like you say, put a light up over here and it can recreate the sun. It can bounce reflections off a visor or, especially it's perfect for sci-fi films. It's perfect for something like this.
Yeah.
Was it always the choice to go, we are going to shoot in the volume? Because obviously you didn't for the other films.
We talked about it early on because I'd used it on Mandalorian, and it's interesting. But it was really sort of like we found that it was great for certain situations, but it wasn't the right tool for other situations. In other situations where we just needed more real estate, building a traditional set and doing digital extensions on that was a better choice. So it worked well for this as one of the tools in the tool belt because we wanted all these things like a quantum jungle or these planes or, Chronopolis, Kang's Citadel. They all had to have different feels to them.
Yeah.
So it was good to use the different methodology for each of these things.
In terms of that compositing side and the CGI side and all that, how much planning? Because obviously it must have been great to go on The Mandalorian and just test it, and I say that in the nicest possible way for you on the Ant-Man, because they had been making The Mandalorian that way for a while. So you'd come onto an already machine that was absolutely working. They knew how to do it, so you could come on and go, oh great, show me this. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Talk us through then what your process was to doing that with Quantumania and how you managed to do all your prep and actually, because now it's you doing it. You've got to think about all this. And obviously you've got your amazing team, but how did it change your thought process in terms of shot lists and in terms of shot sizes and what you want to do with the camera?
I don't know that it changed my process because these movies, all the Ant-Man movies, every movie really, but, from like a $10 million movie to a $200 million movie, if you're a smart director, you're going to do your prep work. I mean, and in a lot of ways, that's where the movie is made, and that's where, the aesthetic of the movie is really, you start to really discover that. Whether it's like, storyboarding or doing elaborate previs, for which you also have to do tech viz, the process just gets longer, right? But on something like this, you always want to pre-plan that because you're creating environments out of whole cloth. And you don't want to be restricted in what you're going to do, and you want to have as much flexibility on the day too. So, I started out doing TV movies years ago that were 20 days prep, 20 days shoot, 20 days post, and you're done.
That's it.
So you have to know you have to have stuff pre-planned, because you can't waste any time. And that, I have just carried that with me throughout my entire career. But, my main thing as director is to, whatever those technical considerations are, is to try and shield the actors from it as much as possible so they can feel relaxed and spontaneous. And if you start losing the life in the performance, that's when you're dead.
Let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the actors working with them on something like this. Now, a lot of these actors you've worked with before.
Yeah.
But you've got a couple of new ones here, and you're working in the volume a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time. How do you... there's some absolutely fantastic performances in this film. Jonathan Majors, for one, is just sensational. Yeah. How did you find that? How do you coax that? It's almost Shakespearean in a way, with the sort of that language and the power and the feel. It's all held in. Talk to us about that and your process as a director working with actors as well, especially on this.
Well, as you said, with Paul, Evangeline, and Michael, we've done all three together. We obviously brought Michelle Pfeiffer in on the last one. This is her second one with us. But yeah, Jonathan Majors is new and Catherine Newton's new. And, my process is the same, is really sort of like to work the script and work with the actors and get at, whether it's comedy or drama or a movie like this that embraces, all those tones, to get at the truth of the situation. With Jonathan, in casting him as Kang, I had seen everything Jonathan had done and just found him such an exciting actor. He certainly has the physical presence for Kang the Conqueror, the thing I was looking for. But he's also just, Kang is this hyper-intelligent being who's just a man. Jonathan and I had so many conversations before, even before we started prepping about what this movie's version of Kang was going to be, and the idea that he is a bit of a broken man, and what's it like to be in the presence of someone who doesn't experience time in a linear fashion. We got most excited about bringing that very different energy into the more lighthearted Ant-Man universe and pitting Jonathan's Kang energy up against Paul Rudd's Scott Lang energy. That seemed exciting, and here's a guy who has no interest in joking around with Ant-Man and is not going to tolerate that. And those two actors working together, doing their thing, was exciting to me.
How do you balance the tone then? Because like you say, you've got Paul Rudd's, you know what he's bringing. You know this wry, quirky, often serious, but at the same time you get his humour. He's being funny. He'll always try and put a quip in. And then you've got Jonathan Majors as Kang, and it's not. Like you say, so were you ever worried that the balance there would just go, you're two different movies? I mean, that's always the worry as a director, isn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't worried about it because, Jonathan he's committing to this Kang character. And Paul, Paul's persona is very lighthearted, but the thing that's easy to forget about Paul, because he makes it look so easy, is Paul's an incredible dramatic actor and has stage experience. He's also a writer. And Paul knows sort of how each piece of the puzzle fits into the larger story. So he knows just instinctually when to be funny, when Scott Lang is committed and in a serious situation. Paul just knows. His radar for that is so precise, but he makes it look so easy. So tonally, not only did we, that wasn't really a challenge for us. It was really what we chased. We wanted that. We wanted that juxtaposition of tones. That was the thing that I think, people might go into an Ant-Man movie expecting one thing, but we wanted to beat Scott Lang up in this movie.
Yeah. And you've definitely done that. It worked brilliantly for me. I love that juxtaposition. I thought that was fantastic. It was just you were like, oh, this isn't a shouty, screamy, angry villain. This is someone who's, this is very serious.
Makes him very frightening.
Yes.
This economy of movement and sort of economy of language, which is the opposite of Scott Lang.
How do you know then when to do certain shot sizes? Because, like I say, we prep, as you talked about there, it's so important for prep as a director. But how do you know? I know it's sort of instinctual sometimes.
Yeah.
But did it change when you get into the volume? You said, okay, well, we're going to do a close-up here on Jonathan, so I'll probably go, it'd be a mid-close. Do you then get, okay, because there's a lot of crane work here, there's a lot of steady cam that I felt like there's a lot of movement within your camera work, which is beautiful and interesting. You're not just holding on a shot, there's stuff happening, there's background stuff, you're always aware of it.
Yeah.
How do you work in the moment then on set? It'd be really lovely for our listeners to hear how you go through those moments on set as a director, your process within an individual shot. When you've set it up, then you go, oh, I might try this.
Yeah, that's a great question. And to me, we talked about pre-production. So I will always go in with a plan, a really solid plan, a plan of like coverage and angles. And, by that time on this movie, I got to work with Bill Pope, one of the great cinematographers whose work I've loved for many years. We go through the script very specifically, and we talk about the kinetics of the movie, but we also talk about the emotion of the movie and a specific scene, where you want to be ideally in that scene. And that's whether you're shooting a practical set, blue screen, or volume. It's all the same. So it's really about, covering the scene. When you get the actors there and you start blocking the scene and putting it on its feet and experiencing it in 3 dimensions and starting to really feel the rhythm of those performances, Bill and I will watch those scenes, and then we'll talk after rehearsal and say, did you notice this great? Did you see what Jonathan was doing here? Paul has this moment here that we got to catch, and figuring out where we want to do it. So you revise the plan based on this thing that you just saw and those moments, those emotional moments or comedic moments that you want to capture. And that's really the process, because it's got to remain fluid. Otherwise, if you're too rigid, well, I got to be here because the light's going to do this. It's like, then you're in trouble because you're going to end up with something stiff and lifeless.
Yes.
You have to allow for those found moments that happen. If you're fortunate, they happen. If you have great actors like we have in these movies, you have to be able to catch that. You'd be an idiot not to.
Yeah. Talking about great actors there, Michael Douglas's, Michelle Pfeiffer's were in this movie. What did you learn from them as well? Because you're bringing them into a Marvel movie. It's not something they normally do or have done. How did you as a director go, okay, I'm working with these titans, these superstars, Wall Street and, Michael Douglas?
On the first movie, I remember when we started shooting in 2014 with Michael. It's fascinating to watch Michael, who is obviously an Oscar-winning actor. He's also an Oscar-winning producer. It was amazing watching him sort of take in everything that was going on. He'd never really done a movie with this many visual effects. And just learning that process. But also, Michael is just, he puts you at ease because he's a very easygoing character despite whatever his roles are, in the movies. He gets it and he's just exceptional. And then when he turns on in front of the camera and becomes Michael Douglas, it's something to watch, man, because he just like, oh, okay, that's why he's a movie star. He just has that thing. It's hard to define. And Michelle's the same way. Like, Michelle is, when you meet with Michelle's a very quiet person, right? I don't think she doesn't like being in crowds so much. There's a delicacy about her. She's very delicate, and she'll tell you the story. She's, every role she's ever gotten from Grease 2 on.
Love Grease 2.
She's tried to back out of because she gets nervous. It's part of her process.
Right.
But she commits and she's great, and she jumped into the idea of playing an action hero in this movie. But watching her, particularly in the quiet moments and that relationship with Kang, it's just beautiful to watch her work. And they're both, they are Hollywood royalty. You look at their individual bodies of work, it's incredible.
And do you treat them, I suppose you do, the same as any other actor? Catherine coming on for the first time. Is it a similar process, or are you diving deeper into someone who's a bit newer?
I think whether they're new or veteran, a big part of my job is, particularly in a movie that's an ensemble movie like this one, you have to identify and learn each specific actor's process because they are all very different. And you have to help them figure out how to be relaxed and give their best performance. Catherine Newton, who is already a veteran, but she's new to our movies, again, this is her first entree into a big visual effects laden Marvel movie. Part of it was putting her at ease and also like saying, listen, you're the new kid on the block, but just relax into it and have fun. And here's what we do, and just guiding her through that process. So it is sort of, looking at everybody's different methodologies and how to, there's so many different ways to approach a role and to sort of get to where you want to get, and they're all different.
You mentioned earlier you started off in TV, which you did, and actually you did some behind the scenes for Back to the Future as well, right?
I did for Back to the Future 2 and 3, yeah.
That's amazing for Zemeckis, which must have been absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And moving into TV, and then into your first film, Bring It On, how did you... did you always want to be a director? Was that something that you went, look, this is what I want to do? Because, you were writing as well around that time.
Yeah.
And how did you manage to get that made? Because, it's a big movie. It did ridiculously well.
Yeah. I did always want to be. I loved movies as a kid, and I got, for Christmas one year, I got a Super 8 camera.
Nice.
I think when I was 12, and
was that because your parents knew you were into film?
Oh yeah, no, I was like, is there any way to get a Super 8 camera? And I think my dad found one used, and bought it, and it was this little Bell and Howell. I had a couple of Bell and Howell and a Canon, and they were Super 8. You do those 50-foot cartridges.
Yeah.
But I learned so much just about camera angles, shooting, film, and then you had a little editor and editing and all that stuff. That was invaluable. And like your shirt says, make your film. That's the way to learn, is to, just go out and make mistakes and learn how to do it and how not to do it. And in those days, again, now we all have amazing movie studios and on our iPhones. But then it was like you had to shoot the film and send it off to get developed, and it came back a week or two later, and it either came out nicely or didn't, and then you cut it and that's part of the thing. But I knew from an early age I wanted to do it. I didn't necessarily know how to go about doing it, and editing was really kind of my way in.
To bring it back to that moment where you were first directing a feature, did it work from the TV side? Did it move from? Were you always pushing to make a feature at that point? Because at that time, TV wasn't as big as it is now. Yeah,
no, TV was a different thing then. And I remember doing, again, I came at it almost to this documentary making of thing.
Yeah.
I did Back to the Future 2 and 3 with Zemeckis and Forrest Gump as well.
Yes.
I did a bunch of those. For me, that was great because I was young and I was watching other directors and actors, veteran directors and actors work. And it was great to see what worked and what didn't work. Zemeckis, you go and watch Zemeckis and Michael J. Fox or Tom Hanks work, and that's like, okay, this is fantastic. And you see that collaboration. There are other directors that I did making ofs for. I'm not going to mention any names, but you see like, oh God, if I ever get in that position, I'm not doing that. And this guy's screaming, and you find out, oh, this guy's screaming because he didn't do his homework. He's not prepped. And they're really valuable lessons that you see, writ large in front of you. So I started in doing that, and through that same company doing some television stuff, which was great. And that sort of was a lucky break. It was actually a Disney TV movie. It was my first TV thing. And it was fun because it taught you the value of prepping and just, basic stuff. Show up on time, do the work, know what you're doing, have spent time with the script, and know what each scene is about. It was very valuable.
You may think you know McDonald's drinks, but you don't know them like this. From fruity refreshers like the Strawberry Watermelon Refresher and the Mango Pineapple Refresher with popping boba, to crafted sodas like the Sprite Berry Blast with berry-flavored Sprite topped with cold foam. Who knew ice-cold drinks could be so fire? 6 all-new drinks are here. Try them all, now at McDonald's. Refreshers contain caffeine.
This episode is brought to you by Tidy Cats, here to level up your litter game with their new Performance Plus lineup. Your home is your happy place, your cats, VIPs. So when it comes to the litter box, excellence isn't optional. Choose from products that specialize in max power clumping, low tracking, or odor fighting so advanced, stink won't see it coming. Tidy Cats Performance Plus. Mission mighty, keep it tidy. Shop now at tidycats.com.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
You've mentioned there about seeing directors or other people who weren't necessarily doing what they needed to do and hadn't done the homework. How did you deal with certain rejections yourself or issues? Maybe we talk about the Fifth Beatle, for instance, or the Fantastic Four. When you've done all that prep and you're ready to make this film, or you feel like you are, and then it gets taken away. Yeah. How did you overcome those disappointments?
I think I learned early on, and it's a valuable lesson for anybody who's young and wants to get into business, whether it's acting or directing. And it's a weird thing to say, but rejection is the norm. Rejection is the absolute norm. Like if you're an actor, how many auditions do actors go on? Nope, you don't get the part, someone else did. Rejection is the norm. To land a part or to get that job, no matter how passionate you are, it has got to be a combination of, persistence, hopefully talent, and then also just, that X factor of being in the right place at the right time. But rejection is the norm, and you've got to know that and not let that defeat you, right? That's a big lesson. With things like, say Fantastic Four 20 years ago, I developed it for a year, and it just felt like, the studio clearly doesn't want to make the same movie I want to make and doesn't understand it. And when the head of the studio tells you, like, listen, sometimes art's leading the charge and sometimes commerce is. And in this case, commerce is. Well, that's a pretty strong signal that maybe you're not going to... they're things. They're just... You have to read the tea leaves, right?
Yes. Yeah. And interestingly, maybe the same the other way around when you did come on to Ant-Man, you know, with Edgar doing his sort of probably the same thing, that just wasn't on the right path. Yeah. What was your pitching process like? Because you'd come from this brilliant comedy background, Yes Man and The Breakup. Yeah. And now you're pitching for Ant-Man, which is a Marvel movie. Talk us through that pitching process and what worked for you, because it obviously worked.
Well, I mean, I had known, when I was doing Fantastic Four, at that time, Kevin was a junior executive under Avi Arad at Marvel. So I'd known Kevin a little bit. I went in and pitched on Guardians. I did a big pitch on Guardians, and James got the movie, but that put me kind of back on Marvel's radar. So I leapt at the chance. I'd always, I knew these comics growing up. I read the comics. I knew the world, and Kevin knew I knew that world. And also the tone of Ant-Man, it made sense for me. So, I leapt at the chance. I read the existing drafts, and because, I really, at that point, had no stake in it, I read the drafts and was very forthright about my opinions about what I felt worked and didn't work in the draft, and I got the job, and it was off to the races.
I used to ask myself a lot of questions. Scott, you're at ex-con. How are you an Avenger? That doesn't make sense. But everywhere I go, people tell me the same thing.
Thank you, Spider-Man!
People still need help, Dad. That's why we made this. It's like a satellite for deep space, but quantum.
Wait a minute. You're sending a signal down to the quantum realm. Turn it off. Now!
Secret universe beneath ours. What are you so afraid of? There's something I never told you.
This place. It isn't what you think. I can get you home and give you more time. If you help me. So, what's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
On that, then, what visual references did you bring in to those pitch meetings or talking about? What was it? Because it's so hard. Because at the time there wasn't, there's a much better setup now, I think, for filmmakers to find images and to find.
Yeah.
How did you go about it then, to go in the room with, this is the movie I want to make? It'd be fascinating for our listeners to know how you actually pitched, literally. What did you show?
I think on any movie, or any TV show or music video or anything that one might want to direct, pitching is such a strange thing, because whoever's on the other end of the pitch, the receiving end, right? At some point they have to make a leap of faith, right? They have to decide like, oh, this person has ideas that are exciting and interesting. It remains to be seen if they can pull them off and all these things. But it's, there's a part of you when you're pitching something, you have a passion for it and you have your take on it. Your take is going to be different than anybody else's take on the material. And I think that's what's exciting. And on the receiving end, every executive wants a brand new, fresh idea. Every executive is also afraid of a brand new, fresh idea. So you're working with this dichotomy on the other end, and you have to convince the person, that you want to do it. And I think you do have to have a passion for that thing you're pitching. There's no point. Don't waste anybody's time if you're not into the thing. I was very passionate about Ant-Man. I knew him from the comics, and also to me, it's like I would have rather done Ant-Man than Spider-Man or Hulk or anything like that. I loved the instant absurdity that a normal person's response is like, Ant-Man, he shrinks and talks to ants. That's absurd. It's like, yes. Yeah. And here's how we're going to subvert your expectations. That was fun to me. I liked those sort of that underdog quality of Ant-Man. That's what I was passionate about.
And did you come in with images? Did you come in with, this is how I'll shoot this is what I want to do?
Yeah, you talk about all of that stuff. Yeah. And, and that's true on every movie. I mean, on Bring It On, it's, you're pitching a competitive cheerleader comedy, and you pitch the tone and all this sort of stuff, and you bring in imagery. But at the end of the day, it's got to be about the story and the characters. What drew me to something like Bring It On, because I didn't grow up being obsessed with cheerleaders. What I responded to in that script was, oh, here they're making a case for it as an actual competitive sport, but it's also exploring this subculture that these characters are incredibly passionate about. It's also telling the story of, a privileged white squad versus, a black squad, and, these themes of cultural appropriation. That's cool. I haven't seen that in a movie before. You kind of approach it as an audience member for me on that one, it was just like, I've never seen this in a movie before. That would be cool. That I get excited about that. I wasn't expecting to be excited about it, but reading that script, I was really excited about it.
What was it that you think got you the job, do you think, on Bring It On?
I think, you know, because I know several people were meeting on it, it was my passion for it, but it was also the tone. It was also, you can't do a 2-hour movie making fun of cheerleaders, and that's not what the script did. It really did, like, you know, it invested in it while, you know, acknowledging right up front with a musical number, you know, the preconceived notions of cheerleaders, and they sing and dance a musical number about that. I thought that was really an inspired way to start that movie. And then it sort of takes you through these characters, and you sort of, you know, you see this situation happening that you know is not right, and you're along the ride with Kirsten's character, the protagonist, as she sort of discovers everything that they've been, you know, building their cheerleader championship. You know, they're 5-time national champions, but it's all been built on thievery.
Yeah.
It just seemed exciting to me.
It's fascinating because the success of that was pretty huge.
Yeah, it was, and again, one of those great things where you're going out with a $10 million competitive cheerleading comedy,
right?
And you have no idea if it's going to connect or not. In that case, it really connected, and it catches you off guard. But that's that wonderful, I think, X factor about movies. You just don't know. You make the movie you want to make, and you're passionate about the movie, and whether it finds an audience now, and also it's like, does it find an audience now? Does it never find an audience? Does it find an audience later? There are so many templates for every kind of movie, and I find that exciting too.
The success of that, though, it must have changed things in a way. Talk us through that and how you dealt with it, because we all want to be, or the filmmakers out there, they want to have that success of their first film. And it's sometimes really difficult. And actually, I always say, don't worry about it. Keep going as a filmmaker. If it's success, great. If it's not, don't worry, go make more. You've made one. You've learned. Get better. How did the success work for you moving forward, you know, especially with Down with Love next, and then Yes Man?
Well, it was great, obviously, to have the first movie hit in that way. And I remember Mark Abraham, the producer on that movie, the night it opened, and getting the numbers that were way higher than we thought. Him saying, he's like, enjoy tonight. It's never going to happen again.
Really?
He's a Southern guy. That was his wisdom at the time. And then Down with Love, you know, the second movie, which I loved, came out and was counter-programmed and opened the same weekend as Matrix Reloaded. Maybe the most anticipated sequel of the 21st century. Yeah. And it killed us, and we made no money. Over time, I think that movie has been well regarded. But it was, for me personally, it was great to have come out of the gate with a hit, and then the next one was not a hit. And for me, it set the template of like, well, you have to learn to live with both. You and McGregor and I talked about when we were doing Down with Love, his thing about, which I found very valuable, which is, before the movie comes out, you're finished with the movie before it comes out, you know how you feel about your own movie. You have a relationship with your own movie, and nothing can change that. That was very valuable to me. And Ewan sort of lives by that.
I think that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's true, you've got to be proud of what you've done.
Absolutely.
Even you know there's problems, you know there's issues you can see as a filmmaker, but it's no one else really can. Well, every movie you do, by the time you finish making it, you would do things differently, right? You just know, and that's if you stop feeling that way, then you're not learning anymore. Down with Love, like you said, wasn't the big success or what people thought, but then Yes Men happened. It's Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
that must have been interesting, and maybe talk about that process of going from making, in a way, a small indie, even though 10 million is quite a lot of money for a first movie to Bring It On, to then working with Huw McGregor and Jim Carrey, you know, that big leap, Renée Zellweger. Talk about that for us and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was just sort of, you know, working with comedic actors, dramatic actors that I liked. The process is always the same. Bring It On was a much younger cast in general, right? So that was more like summer camp in a way. Yeah. But then it's really the same process. You meet with the actors, you cast the actors, you meet with them, you talk, you kind of try and suss out what their, you know, the way they approach acting, and put them together. And as long you want to be on the same page with your actors about what that movie is. That's a very basic thing. But it's the same process, really. You know, there are different egos at play in different situations. You're hitting different actors at different points in their careers. And those things, you know, there's variety to those things. But the basic, actor-director dynamic is the same for all of those.
What did you learn from those movies that you brought forward into Ant-Man?
Everything. Really everything. I mean, every movie, no matter how many movies you make, every movie is its own different process, and you are going back and starting at square one because every story is different. You've got a different set of actors. The circumstances are different. The world is different. The context in which you're making a movie is different. It's a different thing. And you talk to so many directors who talk about, on every movie, even the most veteran directors imaginable, the first time up, Spielberg will talk about, like, he still gets that sort of nervous thing when he's starting a movie, right? That never changes, and you're starting fresh every time, which again is exciting to me.
Yeah. Jumping into actual on-set of Quantumania a little bit more then. You're working with some amazing talent and the team around you, like I said, your DOP absolutely knows their stuff. When you're thinking about lens sizes or your camera of choice before the shoot.
Yeah.
But then when you come to set and you go, okay, we're going to flip it up. We're going to do this. Is that freeing? Is that sometimes, and I suppose time-wise on set as well, is it okay to just be like, yeah, okay, I've messed up here. That was wrong. I want to do it this way.
Yeah, no, not only is it okay, you have to. Whatever, you're shooting a shot. Let's shoot this on a 40 millimeter, and you get it, and you look at it, and you have an instinctual reaction to it. I feel too distanced from this actor with this lens. Put on a 50 and see if it changes. And you put on the 50, it's like, okay, yeah, that did. You have to be able to make those changes. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
And again, working with Bill Pope, he understands. Sometimes I will do that. Sometimes he will do that. It's like, I know we talked about doing this, but look at it on this lens. Like, and sometimes I liked it on the first lens better. Sometimes yeah, no, that's much better. You have to allow for that in the moment discovery. That's a huge part of making a movie.
Same with the production design then and makeup and costume. All those little touches that are in there, all those little beats, you've had a hand in some way. Obviously you let your team play, do their thing. Talk us through your relationship with that side of it, on the crew side.
My relationship with the crew it's vital. They are the people who are helping you realize the vision for this movie. For me, I think one of the most valuable things that I went through when I was younger is when I first moved to LA and was just trying to pay the rent. I worked on TV commercials. I worked on low budget movies. So, on some of these, and these were super low budget movies. Movies like Crack House or Easy Wheels, like a biker movie. Like these are like exploitation movies.
Great titles.
I worked, I worked as a location manager.
Yes.
I worked as a transportation coordinator.
Yeah, that's right.
I worked as a prop master. I did all of these things. So for me, it was valuable because you know very specifically what those departments do and what they bring to the overall picture, and you also see how those department heads can be treated positively or mistreated negatively. So I think as a director, if you don't value everybody's contribution to what you're doing, I think that's a problem. I mean, that's just my philosophy, but, everything's got to be working. You've set up a shot and everything's great and working, but one element is like, it doesn't work. One wrong element can torpedo a scene or a shot. It just can.
Yeah, totally. What about the edit then? How do you find that you shape the movie like a third time, obviously in the writing process on set? Is it for you a great time? Some people love the editing process more than on set. I love being on set.
Yeah.
But do you? What's the process like, especially on something like this? Because even though you're working in a volume, you can see it a lot of the time. But you were saying some stuff's on blue screen, so you're now in the edit and you're seeing it on blue. And talk us through your edit process, how you like to work with your editor.
Well, again, I started out editing early on. So when I shoot, I definitely have the edit in mind. In these movies, for a lot of these sequences, Quantumania in some ways is almost like an animated movie. So we've already done previs on this stuff, and I've worked very closely with the previs team and edit these sequences so we have a version of the sequence before we even start. It's always going to change, and things are going to contract, things are going to expand. But to start from that place is valuable. So I love both. I love the shooting. I love working with actors, but I love editing too, because as you said, you do make the movie again in the edit.
Yeah.
And you can create magical moments. You can find moments out of what you shot and put them together and juxtapose things and find new moments, which I always find fascinating.
Yeah, those little moments just before you say action could be a little beat. The eyes they're just thinking something perfect, which might slot in. Certainly on indie films, we do all the time. We need that little look.
Doesn't change. It's
Does
the
it
same
not?
Thing. Same thing. And also with comedy, the timing and the way a joke, whether it's a physical joke or a verbal joke, the way that is edited can take something from not funny to funny, or take something from funny to incredibly funny, the way it's built. Like that art form. And we had two extremely talented editors on this, Adam Gerstel and Laura Jennings, and they're terrific because they both have visual effects editing backgrounds, but they also have drama and comedy, and they've done, action, but they've also just done very simple human drama and comedy. So, working together, and we worked as a thing where it wasn't, I would go edit with one in one room and the other. We all watched dailies together. Everybody did everything. We all edited, the three of us in the same room together. And that process on this movie was terrific.
Yeah. You mentioned there about finding those little edits you can tweak to make it funnier and funnier. What happens when you tweak it and now it's not funny anymore? How do you, or it's not funny, or it doesn't work?
That's the beautiful thing about, working on an average is you can change it back to the version that was funnier.
Sure.
Or you can determine if God, there seems to be no funny version of this joke, and maybe you cut the joke out of the movie. I mean, it's like that. There is that process, right? Yeah. It's but you get to refine it, and then you get to sort of put it up in front of a test audience and sort of see. Because for a comedy, those test screenings are invaluable to see where the audience is getting behind or confused about something, or where they get ahead of it, and whether they laugh or not at a joke.
Yeah. Well, on that then, studio notes, it's Kevin Feige, it's Marvel, so, and you're close-knit team now, you've proved yourself, with the two Ant-Mans before this. Is it still frightening? Is it still tough when the notes come back? How is that, and how do you deal with that? Because you said, sometimes you want to stick to your vision, but also they've got their vision.
Well, hopefully, as you're developing the story and working on the script, you want everybody in sync about that vision from the jump, right? You got to know that studio, producers, director, actors, you got to know you're making the same movie. And really, when you're working in a studio, and I suppose if you're doing an independent film and you have investors who may want to weigh in, you have to deal with notes. And the approach to notes is, I come at it from having an open mind. Let's hear the note, because if you've got an idea that's great, absolutely, I'll take it. If you've got an idea that I disagree with, we'll discuss it. But it does force you to sort of look at the movie and say I hate that note, but let's see if that note is right. Let's see if there's a note behind the note even.
Yes.
And again, I think with how we've been working at Marvel, and to me, I know if Kevin Feige has a note, I know Kevin well enough to know where that note is coming from. So I have a point of view, right? And I do respect his opinion. There's times when you get notes from someone random who's maybe not invested in your project, and they're coming out from a whole different thing. Like maybe they give a note about the movie that they would make as opposed to the movie you made. You have to be able to sort of delineate those things. But that's just part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's fascinating, that moment.
Yeah.
When someone just gives you a note and you're just like, what? But you've got to take them all, you've got to put them into some sort of boxes. And obviously you can ignore some, but if everyone keeps saying the same thing, you've really got to look at it.
Well, that's the thing, is if it's a pervasive thing that is, you feel like, I hate that note, but I'm watching this thing and that does slow this down, or that does not work, that is confusing. You want to be open to, because the audience is going to tell you that down the line, right? Yeah. So you want to listen to that stuff. Yeah. You don't have to do it, but you should entertain it.
Yeah, you really should. And what's next? I mean, are you allowed to even talk about this next? Obviously, it's the new phase 5 of this cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Do you know, is there anything you can talk about with Ant-Man next? What's the situation?
No, not really. I mean, there's stuff, Jeff Loveness, who wrote Quantumania, is off currently, literally as we speak, writing Avengers Kang Dynasty. So he has secrets, but that stuff is ever evolving too. So even early on in the process, if I did have a spoiler to tell you, it would probably change.
Peyton Reed, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Real pleasure.
Excellent.
Cool. That was great.
Nice.
So there we have it. That was myself and Peyton Reed talking all about Ant-Man Quantumania. It is out now in cinemas across the UK. So do go watch it. If you like Marvel movies, you're going to love this one, especially because Jonathan Majors is an absolute powerhouse in the movie. So go out there, make your films, make it happen. I'm not saying you can go make a Marvel movie tomorrow, but hey, if you start off small, you can reach the top, just as Peyton Reed has done. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. We will probably see you on Friday, when we will either have Saeem Sadiq, director and writer of Joyland, or Mali Elfman, director and writer of Next Exit. Or quite possibly Nathaniel Martello White for his film The Strays, which is now on Netflix. So, until then, do something this week. Do something huge to get your film going and get it made. So important you do that. Until then, though, all the best to you. Bye.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.